Hey everyone. Hi. I'm so excited. Today I am interviewing a very dear friend, an incredible mentor, and a beautiful man. His name is Paul Denniston. Here is his book, Healing Through Yoga, Transform Loss into Empowerment. And I cannot wait to bring him in. Let's see. Here he is. Oh my gosh, this is so. Oh, I can't wait to talk to you, Paul. There he is.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Oh,
Oh, just I'm just gonna like let my energy breathe a little. I was so
breathe.
excited.
Breathe. I'm turning you up a little bit. I'm turning you up.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Hi,
Thank you.
Carla.
Hi, Paul. Hi. Hey, everyone out there in Instagram Live land. My name is Carla Brown, and this is my dear friend and mentor and the creator of GriefYoga, Paul Denniston. And I just want to say, Paul, from the moment I met you, like my heart was filled with so much joy and delight. Uh, and I think it's because you gave me permission to be me in a bigger way because I was experiencing a whole lot of grief. And for those of you that don't know, are you hearing that echo?
No.
Okay, good. As long as it's not bothering anyone. Okay. And so I had just been going through the loss of my mother and one of my best friends within a year period of each other. And for those of you that are just learning about me, I've been a laughter professional since 2008. And I've learned to meet stress, worry, fear, basically discordant emotions in my body and meet them through laughter and help to repattern my nervous system to feel better, okay? In the middle of like the trauma or the worry or the hurt or whatever. But when my mom passed and then my friend passed right on the heels of that, my body was having a completely different experience than the trained patterns in my head. I called it body grief because I didn't really know what to call it. And I remember when I first heard about you, it was actually through a mutual friend, Carol. She was saying, have you heard of grief yoga? And I just jumped up out of the table and started jumping around the room. Grief yoga, grief yoga. But really what it was that my body was communicating to me, there's something here. And that felt like connection. So I would love to have you talk a little bit about what brought you to this journey of grief yoga. And hello to everyone out there. Thank you for joining us here. I see you, Terry and Lauren. And also what moved you to, I have all my little things in here. I've been
Wow, you
reading
really
it.
gone through it.
I've been having fun. This is Paul's first book, and it's, I'm sure, not the last, and it's a phenomenal book. And it's more of a, for me, it's more of a manual. It's a book, but it's more, it spoke to my body, and it I feel like it's one of those books you can pick up and turn to a page and say, oh, appreciation meditation, that's what I need right now. So I would love for you to just talk to us about your journey with grief yoga, what brought you into a physical practice with movement in the body to process grief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carla. I think what my first step was dealing with anxiety and going to yoga classes to help with anxiety. And it was interesting within that moving meditation of yoga, what it did was it helped me to get center and present and also notice that there was a lot of suppressed emotions beneath the anxiety that needed to be felt, that needed to be addressed. And so I think the thing that drew me specifically with yoga too was the compassionate presence and practice of it too. But as I became a teacher, I was very drawn to creating intentional work within yoga. And I think that sometimes you teach what you need to learn. And I was like, what if I created an entire practice on how to hold space and be with grief and to move with grief, but to also create a practice knowing that it was because it was so exhausting, to create a fire and a power within the person too, to channel the struggle and the pain through in empowering ways. And I personally have gone through deep losses, whether it be my sister who passed away from cancer, who I dedicated the book to. I think that there have been losses, whether it be physical injuries where your body isn't performing the way that it used to. I think loss can happen. I certainly know that coming from a place of recovery, I think that a lot of numbing out of challenging emotions or trying to run away from them really was a big thing in my life. Right. And I just recognize that loss is very personal to all of us. It can be anything from, a miscarriage. It could be a job. It could really, for my definition of what grief is when there has been a loss of someone or something that we love.
Yeah.
And grief is just a reflection of the love. And if I choose to love in this lifetime, then grief is kind of part of the package deal. So I choose to love. And so in some way, it's like, how can I learn to move with and befriend that space of sadness too? And also find joy and also find laughter too.
Well, that's one of the reasons, the ways that we met was that I was involved in laughter yoga, and that laughter yoga is a part of GriefYoga. And it really did spark curiosity in me. How could the two things be there? Because specifically when I was in that healing journey, and I would practice 45 minutes of laughter a day to help, because laughter helps to create movement. It helps the energy to liberate itself from the body, essentially. And it also releases happy chemicals. And I couldn't figure out how to meet the grief in my system until I found GriefYoga. And I started to use some of the techniques, and it gave me permission, as I said. And one of the things that was so exciting to me was that you actually put laughter into the practice. And I would love you to speak a little bit more about that, because my experience with people, especially, first of all, people who just come to laughter after not laughing really for years, or just really not having any reason to laugh. There's nothing really funny, so I'm not going to laugh. And life was heavy and serious. But then the added component of being someone who's actively grieving, and then also there's laughter there. And I actually watched your interview with Sean Korn about that. And I would love you to talk a little bit about that chapter, and that the play element of the laughter, and why it's important within a grieving process.
When my sister passed away, the day of her funeral, it was a very heavy day. And there's one part of the day that I will always remember. And it's when I came to my mother and we just started to kind of like hug each other and laugh and giggle with each other. And there was it's a moment in a space where grief and laughter can coexist and live together. When I was going to the laughter yoga training, I was in a lot of anticipatory grief of my sister dying. Times where I wouldn't want to laugh. I'm not feeling happy or fun. I'm feeling irritated. I'm sad. I'm angry. But what was fascinating to me as I was doing it was that if I authentically connect emotionally to whatever it is that I'm feeling, and I allow laughter as a tool to move it through, I recognize that laughter allows the free flow of emotions to move through that can help me to tap into that space of sadness. Laughter allowing the anxiety or the anger to move through. and recognizing how it can totally be a fake laughter and the body doesn't know if it's real or fake, but it's also the benefits are happening within it. So I've just found it fascinating to see how is it possible that sadness and happiness can be friends. And in my world, I believe that is to be true. And even though sometimes it might be hard to see it at the beginning or to feel it, especially after a deep loss, it does provide a little bit of a beacon of hope that you know, um, maybe this laughter can be used as a medicine.
So I feel like I just for my listeners and everyone who there's a lot of people who say like I don't want to feel the bad things. I just want to feel the good things. And we're in the middle of, I mean, we're still, I don't, middle, what a word is that? We're experiencing collective trauma right now as a culture with the pandemic. And a lot of other what I like to call little herniated events. It's like when you shove everything in there and you don't feel it, then it has to pop out somewhere else. And so, you know, this doesn't feel like a very fun, happy time. And grief is, we're all being awakened to the real experience of grief in the body. And I would love if you could speak a little about like tending to your grief on a daily basis and how to bring grief and joy into your daily experience without getting lost in it. Like I feel like what I want to say is how to normalize what I like to call emotional hygiene, to begin to just tend and befriend the feelings, move them through the body, but not get so like I can't feel this because then I'm going to have to feel all of it. So could you explain some of the ways that we do that in grief yoga and how we can bring the joy to the grief? And
Yeah, totally. I also just wanted to recognize that Claire is on here, and Claire just said something that laughter gives space for the sadness, which I really love that she shared that.
oh, I'm so glad you're reading that. Thank you, Claire.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Hi, Claire.
Well,
Yes.
hello, Claire. Um, you know, I believe, this is my belief, that grief doesn't need a lot of time, but it needs dedicated time. And that it's so normal for us to want to run away from the sadness, the hurt, and the pain. But I also am a big believer how the body remembers it and holds on to it. And if things are suppressed, then it just allows us to feel a sense of heaviness, depression, feeling stuck.
Yeah.
So, I think one of the first things is really about just accepting what is. And it doesn't mean we have to like it. I'm accepting that I'm feeling really heavy today. I'm accepting that I'm sad and I don't like it. I'm accepting that I'm feeling lonely. I'm accepting that I'm missing something that my heart is longing for. So that sense of acceptance is really, I think, a very important first step within it.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing yourself the space to be with it in a compassionate space. Is there a way that I can be gentle with myself in this time of struggle?
Yeah.
And to even just to notice, I think too, like, are you being cruel to yourself within your mind when you're feeling, I do that. I mean, I beat myself up more than anybody else does.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah, I think, look at Terry says, I'm learning that emotions are not binary. It's okay to be feeling conflicting emotions at the same time. You know, I like that, thank you. Part of the work within grief yoga, to be honest with you, is a sense of emotional liberation. There are moments where people are doing like anger exercises and they're pounding on the pillow and they just want to laugh. And I'm like, that's okay. There are times where people are doing laughter exercises and are really irritated and angry at what's happening. And so it's really allowing the space to allow whatever the emotion is to flow through instead of judging it and saying that some emotions are good emotions or bad emotions. What if it all just kind of flowed through a little bit like waves? Easier said than done, but hey, you know, it's like the work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah. 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 feel like for so much of my life, like I've used laughter really to help me to meet trauma in my body and to help repattern the neural pathways
How do you
to,
find laughter for trauma?
what's that?
How do you use laughter for trauma?
Well, I learn to reframe the situation because play puts me into my right brain, and that's where my creativity lives. And so when I can, because I feel like I'll speak for myself, when I am in a journey and there is a person or a situation that triggers a trauma response in me, and it's just a memory from the past. Like for instance, I had a lot of trauma in my childhood. Both of my parents have passed, so it's not like I see them on a regular basis and they bring it up for me. So it's just something that kind of loops in my mind. And so what I'll do is I'll just say like, I see you over there. Oh, and then I create connection. I do like some little love scoops, and I bring those traumatized pieces back to me to reintegrate them. And then I'll just do like a little gentle loving kindness laughter, or I'll just do a grief yoga thing where I'll breathe in and I'll just let it out. And sometimes I'll say, this feels really heavy. Ha! And I'll just
Well,
throw it down.
totally. And well, I think that some of the things that came to me as you were talking about is the importance of how, when feeling activated from trauma, how important it is to acknowledge it and to find a sense of safety within it. To try to be present and to remember that this is like old trauma that's kind of being activated in the present. And I am a big believer about how that trauma needs to be released. There's a way to transform that trauma and move it through. It can be powerful in powerful dynamic ways of movement, which we certainly explore within grief yoga. And I think that laughter is a way to also start to discharge suppressed emotion, trauma within us too.
I love that word, discharged.
Discharge, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure, for sure. I think that laughter also gives us a break from the pain. It's literally why I bring a laughter into the grief yoga class, is that I think it's important to be with the pain, to move the pain through. But sometimes we need, in balance in life, to take a little bit of a break from the pain too. And I think don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Well, I'm laughing because before I found laughter yoga, I actually truly, my body did not know a break from intense anxiety and worry and like overwhelming emotions. My body didn't know. I didn't have an experience in my body of breaks. Everything was hard and intense and serious. And when I found laughter yoga, I only laughed for 10 minutes. My mind had a whole judgmental story about it, and my body said, thank God. So yeah,
my favorite part in like laughter yoga training was to really connect to like the darker emotions and use laughter. Like if I were gonna like if I was thinking like Carla's leading a laughter yoga exercise and I'm like, I don't like Carla, I don't think this is funny, so I'm gonna be like, ha 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 ha, you know. Or what I would do sometimes is when I was feeling heavy about the loss of my sister and seeing her pass away, and I not allowing a grief burst to move through, I would laugh, just recognizing my sister's dying, and I'm gonna laugh about that, and I'll be like, ha 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 ha, right? And it's a fine line between laughter and tears, and it would be when I would start to say I'm going to connect to the sadness and I'm going to let laughter move it through, it would immediately allow me to have that release of tears, which was helpful for me too at the time, where it was like it gave me the space then to be present with her, and I had tended to my own grief work so I could be present for her as she was in pain and struggling.
Exactly. Exactly. I think it gives us permission, the laughter, and it also creates space. And I'm just so grateful you brought it into the grief yoga practice. know that
People think it's crazy. People are like, how are you bringing laughter into a grief yoga class? I have people say that's very bold of you. And it's true, because sometimes I have to recognize that some people, especially people who have had very recent losses, they might think that the laughing is almost disrespectful from the loss.
yeah,
And I got to tell you this, my sister would want me to continue to laugh. I believe that our loved ones would want us to continue to laugh. And I recognize that sometimes it can be really hard in the moment to get to that space. But sometimes if we use it as a form of therapy and exercise, almost like Norman Cousins did when he was diagnosed with all of that pain in his body, and he
yes,
decided that he was going to use laughter as a form of medicine, and he would commit to that 10 minutes of hearty laughter every day. What
exactly.
gave him a 6-month diagnosis, he ended up to live 25 more years and wrote Anatomy of an Illness, just recognizing the healing benefits of laughter when we are in pain.
That's right. Well, and we have these, Terry said, hard to let that idea go. And I love that you said that, Terry, because our mind generates these thoughts and then they trickle down into our body, and then our bodies believe it. And if the mind decides, well, this is inappropriate, and then the body just gets frozen, and then there's no breath flowing through, and then that thought connects with someone else's thought that thinks that, and then all of a sudden we're all just like these stiff, rigid, like we're not feeling, we're not feeling the good feelings, we're not feeling the harder feelings, and it's really just a life happening inside of our bodies.
Yeah, and we're just a mixture of all of it, aren't we? We're a hodgepodge of all of it. I'm a mixture of deep sadness, and I'm a mixture of childlike playfulness, and I'm a mixture of anger and resentment, and I'm a mixture of forgiveness and patience. And I think that, gosh, my intention within this work is to not judge these specific emotions, to try to let them discharge and move them through, to recognize for myself, hey, it's okay for boys to be sad. It's okay for boys to be, to show tears. It's okay for women and girls to be angry. It's okay for all of these. They can all fit into them. And how can we find healthy ways to just create that space of emotional liberation so we don't get stuck in any one specific thing? We did it as kids, right? When we were happy, we laughed. When we were sad, we cried. I think as adults, we get a little lost in it because we judge these specific emotions. So
I know we have a laughter exercise called Judgment Be Gone, and we just pull it up. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Judgment be gone. Judgment be gone. Oh gosh, I feel like I need to do that like several times during the day. Judgment be gone.
Yeah. And I love Tina. Thank you so much for saying that. I feel the same way. She said that we're a mixture of all of it. Thank you for modeling that and giving us all permission. That is exactly what you gave me, Paul, with grief.
I love you, Tina. Sorry, I just had to say that real quick. I love you, Tina. Yay, thank you.
Yeah.
I love you, Claire. Thank you.
Hi, Claire. Love you. Yeah, I think that when I first got trained as a grief yoga teacher, people said to me, grief, don't say grief yoga. And I was like, that's very direct and clear. Like grief yoga, that makes me happy. Like something that's going to meet what's going on in me that I don't understand. And it just, I know that the mind gets involved in the body so much. And so I would love for you to talk just about specifically, like I have this one section marked, the evolution section.
Yeah.
So in grief yoga, there's a number of different components. There's awareness and expression. And
so what you're talking about right there is called the cycle of compassionate transformation.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, there's a term for it. And I think that what I was trying to do as I was developing this practice is it's almost like a GPS. If we're going to go into the pain, we don't want to get stuck there. So we want to find a way to move through it. And so in building that, the cycle of compassion and transformation is within a cycle is the first step is about awareness. It's about befriending the body, becoming present, and learning how to move the body in gentle ways.
Yeah.
The second step is about expression. And expression is using movement, breath, and sound to take whatever the struggle, the suffering, the pain is, and to channel it through. We don't want to hold on to it. We want to move it through in empowering ways, which is especially helpful when we have experienced trauma.
Mm-hmm.
The third step is about connection. Connection is a space of finding connection to ourself, maybe witnessing vulnerability, witnessing grief. Connection can also be a place of flowing meditations that help fill us up to more love, more forgiveness, more grace, more gratitude. The fourth step is about surrender. It's a softening. It's a letting go. It's a way of winding down and holding on to the love, but like softening the body. And then the final step, which is evolution, is really to recognize I'm different now. We're different after this, in the midst of this pandemic. I'm different after this loss. How am I different now? And ways to move forward that helps to tap into more perseverance, more play,
Yes.
and more purpose.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really love that part with the perseverance. The play is something I've been practicing a long time, and I now give myself full permission to play. But the purpose and the perseverance coming in there at the end really helped me to see, like, okay, this is just a chapter. This is just a season where it's a little more intense in one area and not the other, but that there can be this woven through all the time. That, you know, right now my purpose is just to sit here and cry most of the day. That's what I have, and to, I think, love myself through it. That's what yoga gave me permission to do, was to meet the suffering and to give it an expression and connection, and then to just let myself let it go, because this is not going to help this when it's grieving. Like, my head could never figure out why my body was still grieving, but my body grieved for a long time, and everyone grieves in a different way, as you know. So I really appreciate you adding this piece in the end that gives permission for the play to come in.
I think, you know, when I'm in deep pain, in sadness, feeling lost, there is a mantra that I say too that really helps. And it's literally just help me.
Help me.
Help me. It can be a prayer. It can be connecting to someone else and asking for help. In some ways, that is a form of surrender in a way. Like, I can't carry this burden anymore. I need support. I need help. Help me. Sometimes just by saying those two words, it softens me into my sadness. And perhaps it scoops me up to get support when I need it, spiritually or from another.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. It's the permission to ask for help, even if we're just asking, you know, the universe. Sometimes we can see it more when we actually verbalize it. So
Terry talks about how I love what she said. Oops, it's gone. It's about her the mind-body connection, that her grief doesn't it doesn't go through. It does. Sorry, my head says I'll be stuck in the pain forever.
yeah.
And I think that we have such a mind-body connection within this. And I think that sometimes, let's say, when we have something that impacts our body, let's say it was a traumatic fall or something that happens, then our mind will immediately go to, oh no, now what's wrong, what's wrong? And then our body will tighten and tense up.
Yeah.
Or let's say, you know, that our mind can get in a place of like worry and fear, and then all of a sudden our body tenses up. And so there's such a mind-body connection that sometimes, instead of saying, you know, oh gosh, you know, what's wrong, you know, what did I do wrong, or stuff like that, maybe it's more important for us to just start to explore, wait a minute, what happened?
Yes.
Oh, I've been through a deep loss.
Yes.
I've been through a traumatic fall.
Yes.
You know, how can I offer myself some compassion in this moment? So instead of like what just to implore a little bit about, instead of what went wrong, just what happened, and to soften into that, but to really just recognize how that mind body is connected. And I think that, we're afraid to go into sometimes the grief and the pain or the sadness, but it also reminds me a little bit of those, when buffaloes noticed that a storm was coming, they didn't try to run away from the storm. They actually chose to run through the storm to minimize their pain within the storm. So what if we allowed ourselves to do that too? I spent years, decades trying to run away from it. And then I noticed that, oh, it's all within me.
Yeah.
So it's that space of balance, of mind-body connection on how can I be with it, but also how can I move with it and move through the struggle.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, one of the things I had permission to do was to connect to it. And one of the most powerful practices in yoga for me was the witnessing. And now that we're going online in a yoga class, when we're together in person live, oftentimes we'll partner up and we'll witness another person just talking, saying, I feel this and I feel that, and just having another person witness. Because the thing that I found is that my mind would get so active and create judgment around what was going on for me. And then that would create like the judgment of the judgment, right? Then there's a problem here. No problem here. Like, this is like, I know what I need. I know what I need to feel, but it's the mind that clamps us down. And I feel like when we give ourselves permission to just connect and recognize I'm suffering, and what do I need? Just like you said, what do I need right now? And that's one of the reasons, everyone, I just have to show you a picture from, like, here's one of the pictures. This book is so phenomenal because it has, for us visual people, it has visual reminders and cues, and it's so simple to just turn to a page, and just, pulling up the weeds is one of my favorites. And you can just come home from a day and you can just say, and just simply the movement. See, my body's trained now. So when I start doing it, my body gets happy because it knows that I'm going to have liberation. But the reason this book is so great, I feel like it could be one of those 365 days, like every day you open it up. Okay, what are we doing today? Because we need permission. We're rewiring our nervous system to let emotional connection and liberation and really literacy to be just normal everyday things. I'm having an emotional day. I'm a little bit more inward, and that's okay, So yeah, I really encourage everyone. Could you talk about how people could get your book, Paul? So I keep talking about it. I love it.
No, it's so sweet. I thank you, Carla. You're so sweet. It's healingthroughyoga.com. Healingthroughyoga.com connects you to an online free companion course of classes that support the book experience. It gives you a place where you can purchase the book, whether it's through Barnes and Noble or Amazon. It's there are links that are there, but then it gives you the space to have the online classes to support the book experience. So healingthroughyoga.com.
And for those of you that might be interested in more of what Paul is doing, they can find you also at GriefYoga.com.
That's correct, GriefYoga.com. And for anybody who wants to find out more about Carla's laughter yoga training, where do they find that?
Well,
you're going to plug me, I'm going to plug you.
Yeah.
Plug
it in. Well, what I want to say is, if you're on the laughter place, if you would like to give your body permission to breathe some more and play some more and connect and have fun and just kind of let loose, then perhaps consider taking a laughter yoga leader training. I am teaching one coming up the first weekend in March. It's the 4th through the 6th. You can find more information in my bio. And I just going to plug Paul right back. The Grief yoga and the laughter yoga is such a great way to acknowledge, whoa, I'm not just a walking head on a stick. Like, I have this body that has all these feelings and emotions, and how can I tend and befriend and love on myself? And so sometimes that's why I love pairing grief yoga with laughter yoga, and just making up laughter exercises. Sometimes, Paul, when I'm doing the wood chopper, I'm, just letting it out, right? It really liberates that diaphragm. And sometimes I'm
chop that piece of wood. Chop it down. Chop that wood.
It's one of my favorite things with my clients. I'll say now, just take out your machetes. I work a lot through with recovery and sobriety and some different recovery centers. And with my clients, I'll say, I want you to just pick up your machetes. Go ahead. They're right over there on the side, and let's just clear a little space out.
Clear the path.
Clear it out. And then I said, sounds are welcome, and then I start making my sounds and people make their sounds. And so, yeah.
That wood chopper exercise was actually brought in by, I've taught this practice to therapists and counselors, and she shared that was a movement technique that she would use. And she would she was literally chopping a piece of wood. And I just loved it so much. And so, yeah, that's called a wood chopper, baby. And you just pretend you've got an axe and you just start to chop. And it's just, again, it's a way of using movement, breath, and sound to discharge the discomfort, the stress, the struggle. We need to move it out of our body. And if that means you're going to chop a piece of wood, then you do it. Yes. You do you, boo.
Yes. Well, and I also feel like laughter yoga helped me to grief yoga actually helped me to fall in love with myself even more deeply, because laughter yoga gave me permission to feel joy again, because I just didn't really have a good experience of it as a kid. And then grief yoga came along and it said, oh, you're suffering, you're hurting, you're wounded, you're bleeding. It was like validating I was having these experiences. And so, at the end of our training, I remember we were laughing more than anyone else taking.
That's the crazy thing. In our grief yoga teacher training, everybody was like, why is the grief yoga group so happy and laughing all the time? And I think it's literally because when you give space to allow the grief to be sat with, to be felt, to breathe, it allows the laughter to come in too. They coexist and live together. It reminds me of that movie. One of my favorite movies is Inside Out. And Inside Out, joy was constantly not wanting sadness to be the way it was. And it wasn't until joy could just sit and be with sadness and allowed sadness to say, oh, you have a purpose here, then it was like they can co-live with one another. And that resonates deeply within me because it's something that I certainly experience. So, yeah.
Well, Paul, I don't want to keep you here all day. I just definitely have a love affair with you on my little right here. Please order this book. Please support this amazing work and this man. And thank you, Paul, for giving us all permission to feel and release and liberate and allow ourselves to be human. We're feeling our humanity, and that's okay. That's important. That's our love.
Right. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, everyone. I will put the link for Paul's book in this once it gets recorded. I'll put it in there, and I'll make sure to talk more because it's just changed my life, Paul. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all who's been watching, and thank you, Carla.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to spend with us. Honor your emotions. They love you. They're telling you something. Mwah. Thanks, everyone. Lots of love. Bye.